This is the worst Minnesota Vikings performance that I have seen in 3 years. And that's saying a lot, considering we've had some bad games. We have had some really bad games. Take away the fourth quarter, take away garbage time, and this is the worst game. And garbage time, I don't even count that. That doesn't matter unless if you're a fantasy owner. The only people who care about garbage time is fantasy owners. Everyone else doesn't care about the game at that point. The Minnesota Vikings lost 40-23 and should have honestly have been 40-0 because all those points came from garbage time. Kirk Cousins remains the king of garbage time. This is the worst performance I have ever seen in my life. The defense for the Minnesota Vikings is awful, and we knew this going into the game. Julio Jones coming back was terrible against our Vikings defense. Now, the defensive line is okay. Defensive line is all right. Now, of course, they don't get to the passer very much because there's always open receivers. We have Eric Kendricks back there. We have Eric Wilson back there. Anthony Harris, Harrison Smith. We have a lot of pieces back there to where there is no reason for the defense to be this bad. Now, the cornerbacks are fine. I'll cut the cornerback some slack. If you are a rookie corner in the NFL, I don't expect you to go against Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley and look good. I don't expect rookie cornerbacks to even compete against those players. But Harrison Smith, Anthony Harris, Eric Wilson, and Eric Kendricks have been in the league. Okay, take out Eric Wilson out of the picture. I can't come on Eric Wilson. They have been in the league long enough to guard these guys. This was terrible. This was awful for the Vikings secondary. Vikings defensive line is okay. I will say it again. Vikings defensive line is only not getting quarterback pressures because there's always open players. That's the only reason why the Vikings defensive line is not getting quarterback pressures. They shut down Todd Gurley yesterday. They gave Todd Gurley all the pressures in the world, and they shut him down. Julio Johnson is all right. Unique Ngakoue is great. Of course, we have rookie James Lewis. Shamar Stephen is okay, but I do think they should still cut Shamar Stephen and replace him with another player. Shamar Stephen has hit his ceiling with the Minnesota Vikings, so I do think he is a very replaceable player for this young Vikings defense. The defensive line is all right. Afadio Denebo got a sack yesterday. He's okay. He's looking all right. DJ Wanham's out there looking good. James Lynch is out there looking all right. Defensive line, I'll cut them some slack. The only reason why they're not getting quarterback pressures is because there is always open players. This is the worst defense. Not only that, but the offense without Dalvin Cook is awful and has no reason to be this bad. Kirk Cousins has no reason to throw 3 easy interceptions to one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Now, that A.J. Terrell interception was a nice interception, but still, that was all Kirk Cousins' fault. That was a terrible pass to Justin Jefferson. Kirk Cousins gave 3 easy interceptions in the first half. You look at the stat sheet for this Vikings team, and you may disagree with me that this was not a bad game. All those stats came from the garbage time. All of them. Vikings were down 23-0, did nothing at all at that point. They did nothing. They got 1 fumble, great fumble. They got 1 fumble, but Vikings team did nothing up until that point. Kirk Cousins, you take away garbage time, this was an awful performance. It still was a terrible performance. Even with garbage time, it was a terrible performance. You look at this, and Alexander Madison answered my question. Alexander Madison, I didn't expect a whole lot. I will say right now, people were over-exaggerating Alexander Madison. They were overvaluing him by far. I didn't say Alexander Madison was bad. He's a great backup running back. I was saying, I don't know, he hasn't answered my question. Can he really be as good as people are saying? Can he really start an entire game in the NFL and look great? From what we saw yesterday, the answer is no. But also, the entire offense. You have to look at everyone. Okay, I'm talking about Kirk Cousins. I'm talking about Alexander Madison here. Both played awful. Both played terrible. Let's look at Kirk Cousins' stats. And when I say these stats, you're going to think he had a good game. But no. We're going to look at the stats before garbage time after this. Kirk Cousins threw 3 touchdowns. Great touchdowns, all in garbage time. 2 2-point conversions, both again in garbage time. He got, how many points is that? That's a lot of points. That's what you want in a game. 3 passing touchdowns and throwing 2 2-point conversions. That's great. Came from garbage time. Doesn't even matter. Threw 3 bad passes that turned to an interception. That A.J. Terrell interception was not an easy interception. That was an amazing catch by A.J. Terrell, but also just a terrible pass by Kirk Cousins. No way could Justin Jefferson catch a ball that's that short on him. That was awful. All of these stats came from garbage time. This is the most, 3 touchdowns is the most Kirk Cousins has thrown all season. 343 yards is the most Kirk Cousins has thrown all season. on the worst game he's played all season, because all of these stats came from garbage time. Before this, he had 3 interceptions and less than 200 yards or something before garbage time. When the Vikings were down 26-0 was when the Vikings offense looked good, because the Atlanta Falcons already won the game at this point. It was terrible. It was awful. We give Kirk Cousins everything he needs to succeed. And the Vikings offense without Dalvin Cook is not a good offense at all. Not even an okay offense. We have Adam Thielen, a great wide receiver, one of the best in the league, actually. Adam Thielen is very reliable. Kyle Rudolph, people will say Kyle Rudolph has fallen off. He has not fallen off. They're just not using him very much. They're not using him in the pass game very much. They are blocking him. They're using Kyle Rudolph perfectly fine. I'm okay with him not getting very many targets because of how many players we have on offense. I'm okay with Kyle Rudolph not getting very many targets as he used to. He has not fallen off. They're just not using him as much as they used to. Irv Smith Jr., amazing tight end. Everything you want right now in the NFL. Of course, he has dropped passes. I think he did. I'm pretty sure he did drop a couple passes yesterday. I looked over that and I saw, yeah, he dropped a couple passes. I do think he did yesterday. But still, Irv Smith Jr., that's something you can work on. Everything else, Irv Smith Jr. is a great tight end in the future for the Vikings. As Kyle Rudolph is apparently falling off, people will say he's not falling off, but I will say that he is getting old, and you don't expect tight ends to play for more than 12 seasons, which I think right now is his 10th season, so I think this will be his last contract, assuming he does probably have a decline coming forward, because he is still pretty slow. I mean, he did make a catch and and run for some yards, but anyways, outside of that, Justin Jefferson is a great rookie wide receiver. Amazing rookie wide receiver. Right now, leading rookie wide receivers in receiving yards, and I do think in touchdowns also. I might be wrong with that. No, he has 2 touchdowns, so he might not be leading in touchdowns, but also, is it? No, he's definitely not leading in touchdowns, because Chase Claypool got 3 in one game, so he's not leading in touchdowns, but he's leading in receiving yards. I think 8th in the league in receiving yards. I might be wrong about that. Still, Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, Irv Smith, Kyle Rudolph, Dalvin Cook, of course, he wasn't there this game, but Dalvin Cook is there. Chad Beebe, great slot wide receiver. He is making plays from the slot, and this guy is an undrafted free agent. We have so many pieces for him to play with. Now, people will blame the offensive line. Stop blaming the offensive line. Stop blaming the offensive line for Kirk Cousins, for how bad Kirk Cousins is. You pay a quarterback $33 million a year, you have to expect that you don't have a great offensive line. You have to expect that you can't pay these offensive linemen so much money if you're paying a quarterback that much. Dak Prescott has the worst offense. I wouldn't say he has the worst offensive line. Of course, Dak is injured now. I hope he does have success with his surgery and going forward. But he was playing. He was the most pressured quarterback out of anyone in the league, and led the league in passing yards. It is not the offensive line's fault. It is not. Kirk Cousins doesn't move outside the pocket is the problem. Kirk Cousins accepts sacks is the problem. Kirk Cousins doesn't hit his open receivers is the problem. I have been high on Kirk Cousins. I loved how Kirk Cousins looked in 2019. Right now, Kirk Cousins is the most overpaid quarterback in the league, and his contract sucks. His contract was terrible. Why would you do fully guaranteed? You're not going to be able to trade him to another team. I know they dropped the no trade clause, and they can trade him to another team. What team is going to take him? Nobody. Nobody's going to take him. The more you pay quarterback, the less players you're going to have. We're going to see these players go, and this was the worst performance I have ever seen by the Minnesota Vikings in the last 3 years. Don't look at the stat sheet. Anyone who looks at the stat sheet may think Kirk had a good game. He had an awful game. Everything came from garbage time. He is the king of garbage time. And that's against the Atlanta defense also. He looked better against the Seahawks defense. He looked better against every other defense in the league so far. Take away the Colts game. Without Dalvin Cook, the offense is garbage. Alexander Madison answered my question. Last week, I had a big question. Everyone was saying Alexander Madison is a great running back. I agree. Alexander Madison is a great backup piece. You sit Dalvin Cook, you put Alexander Madison out there, he will get you 20 yards. He will get you big plays. Can Alexander Madison really start a full game in the NFL? There is a big difference between playing one snap every drive and being out there the entire drive. There is a big difference. I didn't know if Alexander Madison could do it. Obviously, last week we saw him play a whole half. He looked great an entire half of the game. He looked great. People were judging it off of that. Of course, Seahawks defense was playing bad also last week. And this Atlanta defense may not be the best against the run, but they do stop big plays. They do stop big plays. They may still allow some teams like 5 yards a carry, but they will still stop those big plays. Alexander Madison is a great backup running back. Can he be a starter? If you looked at how he played last year when Dalvin Cook was injured and you looked how he played last night, the answer is no. He cannot be a starting running back yet. Of course, Dalvin Cook is out. What I'm saying, Alexander Madison is great, but people are really overgrading him right now off of just half of a game performance against the Seattle Seahawks. People are really overgrading him, and everyone was saying how great he is. I'm like, yeah, he's great, but we haven't seen it yet. We saw it one half of a game. We haven't seen him start an entire game in the league. There is a big difference in the NFL than playing one snap a drive than playing the entire drive. There is a huge difference. Amir Abdullah had a better game than him yesterday. Amir Abdullah did. You know how I feel about Amir Abdullah. We don't need him. He has no place in the team. Of course, when KJ Osborne is injured, you do need him as that kick returner. But we'll see how KJ Osborne looks. We still haven't seen much from KJ Osborne, so we can't say anything about him yet. Anyways, Kirk Cousins. We have given him all the help in the world. People always go to the offensive line. They always blame the offensive line. There is so many teams out there with worse offensive lines than the Vikings, and the quarterback plays better. Why? Because they use their legs. Because they throw the ball away instead of accepting sacks, and they move outside of the pocket. Kirk Cousins does not do that. This was terrible performance. He has so many pieces on the offense to throw to also. So many pieces. Of course, without Dalvin Cook, that's our biggest piece on the offense right there. I'll say that. Without Dalvin Cook, the offense is trash. Without the defense is just garbage in general. But I'm okay with the defense being bad because that's what you expect from rookie corners. I will accept that. The defense is okay to suck. But still, giving up 40 points to the Atlanta offense is terrible. I know Julio Jones is an amazing wide receiver, and it's hard to guard him. I know Calvin Ridley is coming out as a great second-string wide receiver. They have Todd Gurley in the backfield. They have a set offense right there. Still, 40 points against the Atlanta offense, really? They're not even playing for a playoff. Both teams right now are 1-5. We're not playing for a playoff at all. What do the Vikings do now? Can we tank? No, we can't tank. And this is exactly where the Vikings are sitting. We are still a mediocre team. Because what we know, Kirk Cousins went out in the first play and threw an interception. We knew at that moment, the first play of the game, Kirk is not showing up. In the NFL, you have to show up every game. Because this is not the NBA. This is not the NHL. Or whatever it's called. In the playoffs, it's one game to prove yourself. You can't have a bad game. This is not the NBA. In the NBA, you can have one bad game. Okay, you can be inconsistent in the NBA and still a great player. You can have one bad game and you have 4 more to prove yourself. In the NFL, you have one bad game and you're done. Inconsistency for a quarterback is not $33 million a year. It's not. This is stupid. You don't play you don't extend an inconsistent quarterback. I know he's a great quarterback. He's a good quarterback when he plays at his best, but he plays how he did yesterday. He will come out and have an awful game, or he will come out and have an amazing game. In the NBA, that's fine. In the NHL and MLB, all these are best out of what? Best out of 5, best out of 7, whatever it is. In the NFL, you cannot be inconsistent as Kirk Cousins is. That's just not how the NFL works. You don't pay an inconsistent quarterback $33 million a year. Because when you go to the playoffs, now the Vikings aren't, but when you go to the playoffs, you have to be good in every game to win the Super Bowl. You can't have a bad game. Because in the NFL, you don't have 3 more games to prove yourself. In the NFL, you go home and watch the rest of the playoffs like the rest of us. This is terrible. Vikings are going into their bye week, and I have never thought that the Vikings needed a bye week more than this. Dalvin Cook is injured. We need him to come back. Now, I know at the end of the day, losing games is better than winning games for the Vikings. I am not going to cheer for my team to lose games. I don't care. I know at the end of the day, getting better draft picks and losing games is probably the better decision, which, of course, tanking is a myth. I will say that right now. No players try to lose. That's not the case. But still, I'm not going to cheer for my team to lose, even though in the back of my mind, I am perfectly fine with them losing because we can't compete for a playoff. This is terrible. Dalvin Cook, he's got to come back for the Vikings to even win another game. If Dalvin Cook doesn't come back, I don't even know if the Vikings can win another game. They are a bottom 5 team in the league without Dalvin Cook. He is a huge piece. And this bye week is very needed for the Viking teams. They can go home, sit for a week. They could come back and look amazing. We've seen this. We've seen bye weeks do this to players. They go home and they realize they gotta flip a switch or change something. And this is what the Vikings need, is this bye week. And I'm perfectly fine with the bye week. Usually during the bye week, I'm watching other teams like, man, I wish my team was playing. No, I'm glad my team is not playing next week. I don't want to see them play next week. The way they've looked in the last 4 games, take away the running game. The way Kirk Cousins in the passing game and the entire defense has looked in the last 4 weeks is awful. Without Dalvin Cook, Vikings can't even win another game. The way Kirk is looking this year, they can't even win another game. He has so many weapons on offense. Way too many to play as bad as he did yesterday. Don't look at the stat sheet and tell me I'm wrong. Don't throw numbers out there and tell me I'm wrong. Watch the game, and then you'll know I'm right. Let me know what y'all think.